the premier sports talk radio. It's Tony's Takes.
Here we go.
Hey, welcome to another great episode of Tony's Takes, live right here on YouTube for the best show in sports talk radio. And of course, I am not alone in the studio today. Sitting next to me is my co-host, Jimmy D. Jim Jam, how are you?
Doing good, man. It's Thursday already?
Me and Jim did the special with the guys from the Goal Standard. We did that over Saturday. So Jim was at my house Thursday and Saturday, and now he's back on Thursday. And now I'm hosting, we'll call it somewhat of a host, of the new A10 Talk podcast. So if you love A10 basketball, I'm on that one now too. I was invited by our managing editor, Chris, and you can find me on that podcast now. So Jim, you and I talking a lot. I'm drinking a lot of tea, staying away from alcohol and all those stuff that makes your voice all scratchy. I'm sticking to wellness and health with regard to my vocal cords.
New year, new Tony.
New year, new me. And you could say that about Joel Embiid. New year, new Joel Embiid. For he looks to be the front runner for MVP right now. As people are piling into Tony's Takes, they're probably glad to hear that news, that Joel Embiid is maybe a front runner for the MVP position on the 76ers. And I don't want to bury the lead with that. We are going to talk more in depth about him. But I just want to say this about Joel Embiid before we get into the 76ers woes. Because, Jim, you can attest to this. We have St. Joe's basketball. It's Philly, born and bred. I got some Villanova people were tweeting at me this past week. Anyway, not the point. We don't have much at St. Joe's. St. Joe's basketball is a shell of itself. They lost in double overtime to St. Joe's. But while that game was going on, the 76ers, the other team I follow for basketball in Philadelphia, they were being led against the Boston Celtics with Joel Embiid scoring 40 points. That was the lead. He led the team to a win. And you could say, yeah, Jason Tatum wasn't there for the Boston Celtics, which is a true statement, and it is something to consider as a fan. Looking at a matchup in the future, looking at matchups potentially in the playoffs, because we play this team all the time, it is well to do to note that Jason Tatum did not play against the 76ers last night. So yes, let's slow our roll just a little bit for the 76ers, but man, 40 points against the Celtics, regardless if Jason Tatum isn't there, is impressive because Jason Tatum was never going to cover Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid did that against the two starting centers for the Boston Celtics, and it felt good every single time he scored. And it looked good. And you can say this team's not going to be that great without Ben Simmons being at the top of his game. But at least it's good to see Joel Embiid's at the top of his game. Compared to years past, and I don't even know if they could beat the Celtics in the playoffs this year. But compared to years past, finally, someone is consistently playing MVP level, and they are playing to the talent and ability that we were promised as fans. And that's just a better feeling than anything else that Philadelphia fans could think, with the Eagles in their situation with Carson Wentz, a player who hasn't lived up to his name. With the Phillies, yes, Bryce has been good, but has he been to the MVP level that he was with the Nationals that one season? No, he hasn't. And the Flyers have Carter Hart, who's still a young player in his own right. He also could be an MVP candidate, but it's too early to tell. Basketball has been going on longer, and Joel Embiid's a more established player in the league. Carter Hart kind of had his forthcoming, and Jim, you can correct me or not on this. We're kind of out of my zone with hockey, but last year was kind of his big breakout. I know years past they were kind of questioning a player that young. He was the youngest goalie in the league at one point who was starting, but now he's slowly becoming this playoff playoff player, MVP level caliber player for the Flyers. However, it's not the same as Joel Embiid, who we really were promised the goods on, and he's finally delivering. And so that's a good feeling for Philadelphia. And I just wanted to start with that for the first 5 and 6 minutes as people pile in, and as I start to gain my thoughts on St. Joseph's basketball, because I want to start off with something great, and that's Joel Embiid. And it's a good feeling to have him and know that he is there for us as Philadelphia fans, playing hard every night. Because I can't say that about my St. Joe's Hawks. And I have to go out there and I have to defend them constantly. I have to defend St. Joseph's University basketball at their lowest point against all of the people who want to trash talk not only the athletic director, but the coach and any alumni who thought that the last administration at St. Joseph's University needed to go. That is becoming a harder mantle for me to carry for the university than it is to simply turn the television on and go, oh, yes, the 76ers, they're playing well. At least all is right in the Philadelphia sports scene. So I just want to start with that, and we're going to roll on to St. Joe's now. And we're going to come back to Joel Embiid, and I'm going to let Jim say his thoughts on Joel Embiid.
Once I gotta say my piece, Tony.
I'll let Jim say his piece, and I'll give him 10 minutes to talk about it. Jim is more than welcome to talk forever about it. But I just wanted to warm everyone up before I get into the real issue of the day. And that's St. Joe's University. And Jim, just give me a minute or two, and then I'll let you chime in on this one, because I know that you're fired up even more.
Fired up.
So Jim and I talked to the LaSalle guys, and, they're great. Dennis and Rich, we're on a first-name basis. And they're at the Goal is Standard podcast, so go check them out, right? Friends of the show. Always support them. Very nice people. And it was really fun talking Philly hoops with them. But me and Jim on that episode of Tony's Takes, which is on Apple Podcasts with the Gold Standard, both agreed that LaSalle was going to win. So I was heading into the LaSalle game for St. Joe's, which was this past Monday, the Martin Luther King series, heading into that game thinking they're going to lose, and it could be close, it could be a gap, but they're still going to lose. Jim, you said it was going to be a close game. Am I correct on saying that?
Yeah, I believe my prediction was 65-62, so I only thought it was going to be a 3-point game.
Right.
LaSalle's
and I thought it was going to be a blowout. And for a majority of the game, it's one of those, this LaSalle game is one of those games, don't let the box score fool you. They were down 15, 20 points for a majority of the game. I'd say the last part of the second half. It was pretty ugly. And then all of a sudden they climbed back with...
It was crazy.
3-4 minutes to go.
It was like 5 minutes they were down. 5 minutes to go, they were down 20. And then like 3 or 4 minutes to go, they're like, all of a sudden, it's like an 8-point game or 6-point game.
So I think they listened to the Goal Standard and us talk, and they said, we're going to make sure that both happen. And so, literally, it was a blowout at one point, and at other points, it was like this close nail-biter game. But through it all, I knew that St. Joe's was going to lose, okay? And so I'm not going to really talk about LaSalle. Yes, it stinks losing to LaSalle. And all of a sudden, when you lose to LaSalle, the crosstown rival, people really get amped up and start saying, and I saw people who have contributed to A10 Talk, I've seen people who are just prominent on Twitter, if that even means anything, going, hey, for those who thought that Phil Martelli was a bad situation, could you imagine if it got any worse? Well, here it is. I, for one, loved Phil Martelli, and I think it was a total disgrace that you could ever say that about a legend like him. Okay, but what point are you proving? Once again, we're back to this narrative. How am I going to turn back time? Jim, I don't know if you're inventing a time machine in which I can go back and rewrite the wrongs of St. Joseph's University, but that ain't happening anytime soon, folks. We live in a flawed world. We live in one where mistakes are made. And okay, maybe St. Joe's wasn't prudent in the selection of their next coach, right? You could say, well, a new coach wouldn't lose this much. It's clearly the coach's fault that they're losing this much. They lose to LaSalle. They lose to URI in an overtime. They lose to George Mason in an overtime. They lose to Auburn in an overtime game. If you had a good coach, you'd win those games, regardless of the talent that's on the team. Okay, once again, let me get back in the time machine and do the rehiring process. We tried to hire Jameer Nelson, but quite frankly, he didn't have the experience. And no one big was knocking on the door of St. Joseph's University. For its whole history, St. Joseph's University has made its bones on hiring coaches that no one knows about. Because that's what St. Joe's is. It's a school no one knows about until we're beating you. And that's okay. because we attract the young coach, the new coach who wants to make a name for themselves, who knows the program has the tools. We are the gem that people find and realize, wow, there's actually something here that's beautiful. And we can make something beautiful with these raw materials that are at St. Joe's. A diamond, when it's found, isn't perfectly cut. But a great coach who no one gives a chance, and we give this precious little gem to them, and they can cut it to make it a beautiful gemstone. That is what St. Joe's basketball has been and always will be. It requires more refinement than the average program. But once you refine it, it's something beautiful. It's something that wins the A10. It's something that upsets the big name schools. It's the one that makes Naismith Player and Coach of the Year. It's the same one that has Jim Lynam. It's the one who has coached Dr. Jack Ramsey. It's the one who has Phil Martelli. These are NBA level coaches, and they all didn't come from the NBA to St. Joe's. No, they became great NBA potential coaches because Phil, I guarantee you, at one point in his career was offered, hey, do you want to come and be an advisor on an NBA program? We can scout, we can move you up slowly. And then there's sometimes where coaches are just straight up hired out of like, for example, Brad Stevens, right? That's all potential for St. Joe's. But they don't come here when they're great. They come here when they're good coaches without a reputation, and they build the reputation at St. Joe's. And it takes many years to do that. It doesn't take 1.5 seasons. Phil Martelli inherited a good program and kept it developing. Billy Lang inherited a program where the best player is Anthony Longpre, who's returning, and Ryan Daly. I couldn't name a coach who can turn that into anything. Ryan Daly's a good player, but really they didn't have much. And Billy Lang's doing his best. And for those who want to doubt the St. Joe's Hawks, remember, Ryan Daly hasn't played these last month. Greg Foster Jr. has not played this past month. He is a transfer from Gonzaga, and he's not playing. Instead, I'm looking at Jadrian Tracy, who has really improved and played crunch time minutes in overtime yesterday. He scored 18 points. He shot 67% from 2. He shot 39% from 3 this season, 67% from 2 for the season, might I say. Him and Hall, who are 2 freshmen, are the best defensive rated players on the team. And Jadrian Tracy is the 3rd best offensive player rating on the team. Tracy, Cameron Brown, Ramir Moore, those are the only guys, when I watch the St. Joe's Hawks, who have any heart. Demir Bishop, no one's talking about Demir Bishop, but he's got issues that Coach Lang needs to work out. Demir Bishop is shooting the most amount of threes and the least amount of twos on the team. He is the main reason when you watch the game, you go, why are they shooting the three so early? Why are they doing that? Why aren't they hitting the lane more? It's mainly him. He's the one who doesn't have a balanced scoring attack, and he's the one who's allowed to handle the ball outside of Hall. And he's just not making good decisions. He doesn't attack at all. He's the 4th highest turnover in the A10. He shoots the most amount of threes and the least amount of twos. He refuses to attack the lane with the talent that he has. And he has the most amount of turnovers. He's careless with the ball. So, no Ryan Daly, no Greg Foster Jr. Your starting point guard's a freshman, and the other guy on the team who handles the ball is probably the worst player statistically on the team as of right now. He's the most inefficient player is the word I will say. Causes the most amount of mistakes and shoots the most inefficient shot in on the whole team and doesn't diversify his scoring. How are we going to win with that? How can you put that on Coach Lang? Players don't just come out of nowhere. And this is the other thing about the timeline. Jordan Hall was supposed to study under Ryan Daly. Those two were the ones who were supposed to share the ball. But instead, it's Jordan Hall trying to figure it out with Demir Bishop, who also needs to figure his own game out. I'm not saying he's a dud. Demir Bishop has an important role on this team. I just want him to get better. When I look at the stats, I see this is a weakness in the team and we need to improve it. And who's talking about it? The two guys who hold the ball in their hand are the most important on the whole court. And we have Hall learning it all by himself. Instead, it was supposed to be a smooth transition. Ryan Daly leads the team this year. They were supposed to get a couple more wins than they did last year because they have pretty much the same roster. added 4 or 5 good new pieces. But instead, 2 of those pieces are injured. And now Jordan Hall doesn't have Ryan Daly. He's by himself. He has no safety net. See, next year when Jordan Hall was going to take over the team, he would have had the safety net of this year, learning behind Ryan Daly. And then when crunch time happened, Ryan Daly would take control. But instead, we have Jordan Hall by himself out there without that nice transition period, without that, as an analogy, Favre to Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers, they're handing the torch off. That doesn't happen. Instead, Hall is out there for majority of the conference schedule, playing by himself and trying to win games on the road. And everyone just wants to go, it's the coach's fault. So, I mean, are our fans unrealistic? Do people not want to look at the numbers? Is it my fault because I'm not actually writing? I mean, I've written about this, but Jim, I mean, it can't just all be Billy Lang.
Tony, you say, how can we blame this on the coach? I'll give you a whole bunch of reasons. Free throws, defense, discipline, energy, and will to play. There's no heart when I watch this team, especially in that LaSalle game. All right, now I didn't get to watch the George Mason game because I was too busy watching the Sixers. But when you look at the free throws, and I said this the same way I'm saying this now about Phil when the Hawks couldn't shoot free throws in 2014. It's the same thing. That is practice. That is on the coach to make sure that those guys get the reps in for that. Defense, and defense and energy and will to play, they all go together. That is hustle. You didn't in that LaSalle game. You had the announcers pointing out that our guys weren't going towards their passes. They weren't stepping towards their passes. They were giving up turnovers. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing that I saw with the Sixers under Brett Brown. And I hate to say this, but I think Billy Lang is bringing the same philosophy that the Sixers had when Brett Brown was the head coach to the St. Joe's Hawks. It looks like the same exact play, except there's no talent on this team like the Sixers had. So now we're not winning games at all. What are we, 1-10?
We are 1-10. I don't think it's the talent that's the problem, though.
No, I don't think that the Sixers' solutions was talent either. What I'm saying was the Sixers had talent, so it made up for the philosophy of the team. And I think that the philosophy of this team is rooted in a bad handed down philosophy from Brett Brown. I think that Billy Lang is too much closer to Brett Brown than he is to Jay Wright anymore.
I'm not willing to sell Billy Lang down the road. It's been 2 years. College coaches get 4 to 5. And you're echoing many of the things I see on Twitter. People going, his record wasn't that good at Navy. His record wasn't that good. Where else was he? Bucknell or Lehigh? I always forget. But the record wasn't that great. And, yeah, he studied under the 76ers, but he really didn't have that much experience. Yeah. You can't compare Navy basketball to anything like St. Joe's. And so I'm not going to take that argument because it is foolish to compare the recruiting ability and the play of the Patriot League and the ability and format of which you can play with the recruits you get at Navy compared to St. Joe's. That's just a fact. You get more athletic players at St. Joe's, and it allows you to find more creative solutions to your problems because the recruiting class is just different, right? You can't, for example, why aren't we looking at more foreign talent? I could argue that we should, that Phil actually did that pretty decently. And we did bring in some guys once in a while who were foreign, and they played really well. Okay, so let's keep looking out at that area. That's a unique situation that Navy could never do, right? You couldn't do that. That's the U.S. Naval Academy. Now you talk about scheme. Is Billy Lang taking from Brett Brown too much? Maybe he is. Okay, I'll concede. Maybe he's shooting too many threes, which is something I've harped against all season long, right? I am not new to this. Jim, you can attest. I have always said attacking the rim is the solution to this team. And anyone who follows me at A10Talk.com knows that this is the drum that I have been beating. So I'm not discrediting the argument, and I'm not even disagreeing with it. I tend to agree with this line of thought. But a year and a half still isn't too much. I think that the departure, the way it happened, and the way that all those students, through the grace of athletics director Jill Bonesetter, this is the one thing people like to forget. They like to say Jill's the mean bad person because she fired Phil Martelli too soon or abruptly and didn't give him his due. Jill opened up the transfer portal. She did not have to do that. It could, you know how easy it would have been, Jim, for Jill to go, everyone's got to stay and you got to play because the team will suffer if you don't. Lamar Kimball, you're staying and you're going to play for us and you're going to like it. And Billy Lang's going to coach you for a year. And when he says get out there, you got to get out there for the betterment of your career. And this team's going to keep chugging along. We're not going to dip in wins. That way the program can hold on to its victories. And they didn't do that. And they shot themselves in the foot by doing that. But it was for the being a virtuous and giving grace to those players. And so for everyone who wants to yell, team's not good enough, not early enough, and they fired Phil abruptly, maybe they're not that great because they allowed a lot of guys to leave. And they really did reset the program when they could have done a lift and shift, kept all the players, kept the recruiting going, and just put Billy Lang in there and said, coach differently. It could have been so easy to do that, and they didn't. And now everyone's going, why aren't you winning a year and a half in? Well, it's because you hit a hard reset. They literally ripped the computer out and reset everything, reset all that memory, all that good winning tradition, and said, no, we're starting from scratch. We're starting from ground zero, which is dangerous for a college team because losing doesn't get you anywhere, right?
Agreed. Yeah, you don't get a draft pick or
right.
anything. Yes, I agree. But I will stand by the argument, and I don't want to say I don't think that Billy Lang should be fired. I'm not there. I'm at the point where, okay, here are some coachable things from teams that you should see areas of improvement: free throws, defense, and discipline / energy, whatever you want to say, the grit or whatever. I should see that out of players, even if they feel like they're not going to win the game. They should at least have that sort of energy as the game starts, and that is up to the coach for me. That is not up to the players. Maybe it is a little it's definitely disheartening to be 1-10 right now, but at the same time, it's up to the coach to inspire the guys, and it's up to whoever they have as their leadership. Even if that's Ryan Daly from the bench, I need somebody to step up and lead this team and make them feel like they have a shot every single time they step on the court, especially now that we're getting into conference games where it matters. None of this stuff really mattered before, and I think that should be the message, is that Auburn, Kansas, Tennessee, Villanova, even Drexel, none of that matters. But when you get into A-10 conference play, this stuff matters now. So let's get on the same page and let's play some hard basketball. And to their credit, the last two games have been closer games as the end result. And they played hard basketball in the last 4 minutes against LaSalle. But
I mean, George Mason was almost a win.
I know. Yeah.
That block first of all, Jack Forrest getting blocked. I mean, they did everything right. They played hard defense at the end of the game. You can say they didn't play great defense all season long, but when push came to shove against George Mason, they did play good defense to some degree, and they made the steal when it mattered most, and that was a freak block. That doesn't happen all the time. They made the right play, and Jack Forrest going for the dunk, that's the right play. And that's just bad. I mean, that's bad luck. I mean, it's the curse of Martelli. I'm dubbing it here on the radio waves, and I might echo it on the A10 Talk podcast. I mean, that's how all these curses get started, right? It starts on sports radio.
Yeah, right. And let me turn my positive because it's a good transition. They finally held an opponent to under 80 points and an A-10 conference opponent to under 80 points at regulation. So it made the game much more exciting for sure because you're like, oh my God, the Hawks are in it. Like this is their game. They're going to turn the corner. So I think maybe we are finally coming together as a defensive team, as an all-around team. The scoring was a little bit lackluster, but 69 points isn't anything to sniff at. And I still think that mid to late season surge that we both talked about before the season started.
Yep.
You preached this
said
a
it was
lot.
going to they were going to take time to meld a little bit.
And I think even without Greg Foster Jr. and Ryan Daly, that surge is still going to happen. Because I look at Jack Forrest and I look at Funk, and I see these guys actually playing some pretty good basketball when they have the ball in their hands. So I don't know. I'm kind of excited for this.
And Jack Forrest last night, they kept saying he's struggling. He was struggling. But at the end of the game, he shot and scored when it mattered. He made a crucial bucket down at the end of the game to push it to overtime, and then he made the steal as well. I can't complain if, sure, you're having a bad night, but when it matters most, you bear down and you play your best basketball for 5 minutes. That's all I need you to do if you're Jack Forrest. And Jadrian Tracy, bright spot, scored 18 points. He plays really good defense. Him and Hall are good defenders. Jansen, Funk, Longpre, there's a lot of issues with the bigs on this team. And Demir Bishop lets guys run by him sometimes. But Ramir Moore, Cameron Brown, Jadrian Tracy, Jordan Hall, those guys will play lock defense. And I really like them, and I want them to be elevated on this team more. And again, I am a firm believer that if Ryan Daly, forget Greg Foster Jr., if Ryan Daly was playing, this team, they'd be 2-4 in the conference, 3-5 in the conference, whatever the record is. They'd have 2 to 3 wins by now. They would have been closer to LaSalle. They would have beat George Mason, and they would have beaten Rhode Island. So they're not going to beat VCU. This team's not going to beat St. Bonaventure. This team's not going to beat URI. We need to beat the Duquesnes if we can. We need to beat the George Masons, the GWs, LaSalle's, Fordhams. Those are the ones where I circled them on the preseason suggestions and predictions and said, this is a year that's, and I never predicted that we were going to win everything, but I said, this is the year St. Joe's wins the games they're supposed to. And they haven't. But I still have hope that there is opportunity for it. Okay, Jim, let's move on to the Eagles. We're going to talk about the Eagles, and then we'll get into Joel Embiid. And for those listening to Tony's Takes, really do appreciate that everyone is spending their time this lovely Thursday night here on today's episode. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and double-click the notification bell. That way you get notified every time we go live. And if you like the show and you want to get your takes read on the program, make sure to email us, tonystakes.1851@gmail.com, tonystakes.1851@gmail.com, and follow our Twitter account at tonys_takes. Okay, Jim. Eagles hire a new coach. I still don't think getting rid of the old coach was the answer, but give me a positive for why the Eagles made the right hire. Can you do it?
It's a young coach, and it seems like young coaches are...
Did Frank Wright orchestrate this?
Oh.
I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but...
That was the first thing I said was that... that was the second thing I said. First thing I said was that this is just another puppet for Howie and Jeff to manipulate because it's a young guy, and I just feel like he's going to be... I don't know. He's not going to have a pure direction of where he's going to go with the team. But maybe maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just judging too fast. Second thing I said was someone leveraged their relationship with Frank Reich. I call shenanigans. That was exactly what I said. I had a friend that said a positive about this was that it's a young coach and young coaches are hot right now. So
yes, they are. And they tried to get Oklahoma's what's his name? Oh, why am I going to struggle with that?
I don't know.
Okay, keep
I forget what his name.
I'll Google it.
But I had another family member say that they thought that he was cute. So there's another positive. I mean, we got a good-looking coach. So
Lincoln Riley,
yes, for Oklahoma.
who's like that's the one everyone wants.
Also, this coach does come. He comes from the Colts. I think they were 11-5 last year, and he comes from Andy Reid again.
Oh,
so
got to get him in there.
Yeah, he comes from the Chiefs. So
they will only hire Andy Reid, right? Doug Peterson's Andy Reid.
Yeah,
he's Andy Reid.
I hope that that Sirianni, I think that's how you say his last name. I hope that he just brings what Frank Reich was bringing to the Eagles back in the day. Like, he just studied under him for 3 or 4 seasons. Let's bring it back to Philly. Let's get the creative plays, the creative offense back. You got Deuce still as an assistant head coach. Is
he going to be an assistant?
I think he already was.
Okay.
I think he got promoted.
People were demanding that he be the head coach. I don't know about that. I don't even know if this guy's ready to be head coach, but continue.
Yeah. I think Deuce, maybe a couple years down the road, Deuce was a really good running back coach
right
in 2017. And, we had the Jay Ajayi and the LeGarrette Blount year. That was all Deuce. So I think that those two as a combination, Sirianni and Staley, will be pretty solid.
Kristen Cosenza goes, hot people win. And Stephen Brownell, I said that right this time, didn't I, Jim?
Yes, you did.
Ha! Goes, John Dorsey orchestrated this. And if you're listening to Tony's Takes, chat it up. Let us know what you think about Doug Peterson. We're going to be reading the chat for the rest of the show, for sure. I'm done with my St. Joe's rants. And we're back to another bird of prey. So here's my thing about the Eagles. I don't know much about this guy. And I was thinking a lot about the Jets, too, right? Because the Jets, they hired a new coach. Is it Salle or Sal? I don't know how they pronounced it.
So Soleil.
Soleil.
Yeah.
Circus de Soleil. which would be a pretty cool name. I guarantee you they'll put that on the New York Post at one point. If the Jets lose like 5 times, like they'll call it a circus and they'll go Circus of Soleil or something like that. But I think I'm pronouncing the name wrong. And I'm really interested about the Jets because I think they're really gonna go after Deshaun Watson. I think it's gonna happen. However, for the Eagles, getting a coach who's going to try to revive Carson Wentz, quite frankly, is the best move if you were going to get a new coach. Because if you can get Carson Wentz to be better, if you keep him, right? We don't know. We're not mind readers here at Tony's Takes. They could trade Carson tomorrow. But it looks like the coaching hire was for a coach that is going to try and rehabilitate this player. And so, if that happens, which is fine if he does rehabilitate Wentz, that means that his trade value is only going to go up if you can do it. And so if I'm an Eagles fan, I understand maybe he's not the most flashy hire, but if you're getting this offensive-minded coach who isn't as stale as Doug was, and it's all in the name of getting rid of Carson in 5 to 7 games, I'm all for it. Because quite frankly, I'm tired of all the shadow lurking that's going on with this team. A lot of shadow lurking. I'm not hearing a lot of answers, and no one's being held accountable. And it's quite frustrating, regardless of if you're an Eagles fan or not. This is one of the most major franchises in the NFL, and if they aren't run properly, it's more money for the league to go down the drain. Football is fun when the Giants are good. Football is fun when the Cowboys are good and the Eagles are good, and they're going after each other. Football used to be great when the NFC East was as good as what the NFC West is right now. That's what makes football fun. Who cares if the NFC West is good? Those are teams we're never going to watch, and they have a limited market space. Yes, the West Coast is a major market, but in reality, NFL is built on the northeastern corridor. It is pretty much solely housed in the Midwest and the northeastern corridor. We don't care about college football here. It's professional. And I could say the same thing about the Midwest. You could say, yeah, but the Big Ten's important, and it is important. It is important, don't get me wrong. But Packers and Bears fans, Browns fans, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and Patriots fans. The Northeast and the Midwest, that's where professional football really, really matters. And then you have the Dallas Cowboys, who pretty much cover everyone else. You know, people in Atlanta aren't really Atlanta Falcons fans. They're Dallas Cowboys fans.
Yeah.
And then you go to like Miami, and it's like just Miami, or that's my example. But really, I know for a fact that many of the southern states, you're like a Cowboys fan usually.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that kind of bleeds over even to the Northeast. Like I swear we have a higher concentration of Cowboys fans in Philadelphia.
I think they're just people who pick them.
Yeah, I think that's...
I don't think they're actually like ever lived there.
I wonder if there's a high concentration of Philadelphia Eagles fans in Dallas. Like,
I wish there was. That'd be great.
I'm sure that
there's
not
a club where you can go and watch Eagles football.
Yeah, and I'm sure you get Bears fans in Green Bay, and you get Vikings fans in Detroit. Like I'm sure it's everywhere that you get stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this coaching hire just yet. I'll give him a chance. Whatever. We have to turn a corner, and they made this decision to fire Doug. So let's just roll with it and see what happens.
Steven goes, getting a coach for one player is not a good idea. Every coaching... Okay, I know, Steven, you might disagree with this, but every coaching hire in the NFL is solely based around the quarterback and coach relationship. So you are hiring for one player.
Look at Rodgers with the Packers.
Yes.
When they fired McCarthy and brought in what's his name?
Tom Brady purposely picked Bruce Arians, right? He was going to come to Tampa for a reason. Team was set up well. He agreed with the coach. You can go to the list.
Matt LaFleur with the
Matt LaFleur. That is
Packers,
correct.
Yeah.
Look, you could say even the Cowboys did that. They brought in a new coach because they wanted their quarterback to be happier and in a better offense, even though I don't think that was a good hire to begin with. But it is very well known that that's what coaches and players do. I mean, you could say it's not smart. Totally agree. It's not a good thing to do, but it is a common thing in the NFL. I mean, look at the Texans. They fired a coach because one player was unhappy. The quarterback.
Yeah. It's definitely out there. It definitely happens. Again, I think we can agree.
But I'm not saying it's smart.
We can agree that it's not the best decision, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But it happens. And it's unfortunate, but it is true.
All right, let's roll into this NFL playoffs, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let's roll to the NFL playoffs. I just want to read Steven's last. I'll give Steven the last word. He goes, yeah, to a point, but you have no idea if this guy is actually a good team coach. Yeah, we don't. We're going to have to find out. That's the unfortunate. When you go for these OCs or DCs, that's what happens. And then Lays in the chat goes, talk about cycling. See, Lays, you got to text me before the show, and then we'll talk about cycling, because then I'll know what you want. Okay, Jim, go ahead.
Okay, and last week we were 2-2, so it just seems like we're just splitting each NFL playoff weekend. So we'll probably get one pick right here and one pick wrong. But we got
as always.
Yeah, we got the Bills at the Chiefs, and both games are plus minus 3 points. You know, Chiefs -3, over under 54 points. I don't know how you feel about this game. It depends on whether Mahomes is cleared to play. Obviously.
And no one knows.
It hasn't been stated yet.
You're going to keep that
right?
one close to the vest.
Yeah. Even so, like I have written down, the Bills are rolling. We're rolling through teams at the end of the season, and they've kind of just continued this
momentum.
Yeah, this momentum is huge, and they're the hottest team in the NFL. So why should I even feel like worried with Mahomes in that game? I don't know. I just feel like the Bills they have magic on their side.
They have magic. So are you going to do the pick, or am I? Because I'm actually torn.
Yeah, I'll do this pick. I'm going to take the Bills.
Okay, you're taking the Bills. And
yeah.
Are you going to go over or under off 54 points? We won't include this, but I just want to hear your thoughts on the over-under at 54.
I'm going to go over. I think both teams can score, and I don't think the NFL is truly a defensive league anymore. I just feel like everything is over.
I don't know. These games were really low scoring last week. A lot of them were. The Bills game was the highest scoring game.
So then we have to go with the over then.
I will say this. If you're betting the over, it's because you pretty much think that Mahomes is going to play. If you're Whoa, sorry to the listeners.
Earthquake.
Jim knocked over the mic. That was a pop. You probably blew out some speakers.
Oh, sorry about that.
Didn't blow out my speakers, but the viewers at home might not have earbuds anymore. I will say this. If you bet the over-under, you're doing it because you think Mahomes is either playing or he isn't. And I think he is, and so I agree that over 54 is probably wise.
Yeah, I think he's going to play, especially if they're going to hush-hush about it.
Yeah, they're really hush about it.
Henny kind of looked good, though.
But not 54 points over unless it's a total blowout.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to pick. This is even a harder game to pick. It's a harder game to pick because I don't like going against Brady. Like, I just don't want to do it. I am more willing to say Aaron Rodgers is going to mess up in the playoffs than Tom Brady. I mean, it's a fact of numbers.
You sound like Sean from Stratford. He was saying the same thing earlier today.
You mean Shawnee Brawny?
Shawnee Brawny,
We'll
yes.
call him Shawnee Brawny. Sean from Stratford. The loyal listeners to Tony's Takes know who we're talking about. So I don't want to pick against Tom Brady, man. It is difficult. That team looks pretty decent. Antonio Brown is probably going to play, they think. However, Rory Houston used to be a co-host of this show, and I know Rory would be eating up what I'm saying and go, "You're wrong, Tony. The Pack, go. I'm from New York, but I like the Packers." Got a point, Rory. And Aaron Rodgers played the best football of his life. He is playing the best football of his life. And the Packers are a well-rounded team. They just are, folks. And they got home court advantage, field advantage, in snowy, cold Green Bay. And Brady is a cold weather guy originally. However, the offense is more high-powered than they used to be with the Patriots. That was a much more running-oriented offense. In the championship years, they were much more power offense-oriented. With all this factored into my brain, going Packers, they're the home team, cold Lambeau, they get to have people in the stadium. Aaron Rodgers looks untouchable. The team is well-rounded enough. It's not a worry. And while Tom Brady has played in the cold, I think the weather is going to be just enough of an effect where his arm won't be the same as when he was younger. It's going to be a lot harder for him to play in the cold and this is real cold, like frigid cold. And I don't think if Brady even played well, I don't know if his other teammates know how to play in the cold like that. They're in Tampa for majority of the season, and they didn't play in cold weather majority of the season. Going Green Bay. It's such a home field advantage.
Yeah, Tony, we have 29-degree weather on Sunday
Yeah.
in Lambeau.
I mean, you can get that in New England, but if you're coming from Tampa, it is cold.
That's the high. And there's supposed to be snow in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be nice little dusting for the field. Oh, it's magic.
I mean, that's what makes great football, right?
Yeah. Wait, so how did you feel about the over-under, just for fun? 51.5.
So
We just talked about the weather. I know that that's your
right,
factor.
and that's what I'm computing quickly in my brain. I think this is the one. If there's gonna be one that's the over, it's this one that's more likely. I think Green Bay just scores enough, and I'm saying the weather will be just enough of an impact where the Bucs maybe struggle on a drive or two more than they usually would, and that's the difference maker. In a neutral field, I'm willing to say the Bucs Packers is a dead toss-up, and that the over is going to happen. Because they're in the cold weather, I think the Bucs are going to struggle just a little bit more, and I think because of that, the Packers rightly should be the 3-point favorite. The spread's 3 points, which actually that means Vegas is taking them as a toss-up. Field goal is usually a toss-up when the home team's favored by 3 points. So Vegas says it's a toss-up. I think Packers, the line should be maybe 4.5, but like over a field goal.
Right.
Like make them touchdown favorites. But that's just my opinion.
This seems pretty typical for championship games.
Just make it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the two best teams in your conference.
It should be.
You like to think
close.
that it should be pretty. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to do picks for the Super Bowl, and then I want to talk about Joel. I want to let you talk about Joel.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, we both picked Bills and Packers, right?
Yep.
So
And it looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I just think that if it is Bills versus the Packers, I like the comparison of Josh Allen as the young Rodgers versus like a much more mature Rodgers with Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like that. I think it's convincing. I think it's a good storyline. They both still have they can get things done with their legs and can throw the ball really, really well.
Right.
So I think that Super Bowl is set up to just be it's like a very good offensive battle, and I don't think either team like really brings too much defensively. And like I was just saying, I don't think the NFL is really a truly defensive league anymore. I think it's really gone to the point of just pure offense, and the amount of weight that's just put onto quarterbacks to be both the thrower and the runner now. It just seems like it's making the quarterbacks to a more crucial position, and I think that if they want to continue this storyline in the NFL with the quarterback being the main thing, Bills versus Packers might be the best game, because I don't know if Mahomes is even playing this week, which we're just going by that assumption. So either way, you're going to have some sort of quarterback versus quarterback, like the best of the best.
Yeah, these are four great quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that these two are the most similar out of the four.
Yeah, and I mean, the only team that you only guy that you would say maybe he's not in this group is Josh Allen, and he looks like he's the favorite to win it all. I mean, really, I do think the Bills should be the perennial favorites right now, just because of the way that the Chiefs are a question mark with Patrick Mahomes. And I will say this: the only other quarterback maybe you substitute is Drew Brees. But other than that, there's no one else I can think of. You could say Russell Wilson, maybe he deserves to be mentioned, but. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger is not the player he was anymore. He's another one of the greats. So we'll see. And I'm just going to say this. Josh Allen, he could throw a football through a brick wall. I mean, that thing rockets.
Yeah,
it's so impressive.
I like the shirts that they have with him where he's got like a cyborg-looking arm, you know? It's just like...
I've never seen a ball not have any arc on it and travel so far.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like it's on a string, like zipping across the field.
Yeah, they just like fixed his mechanics so well. You know, you can tell his footwork is so much better than it was the year before. And
yeah.
He gets like a lot more torque out of his throws, and it's...
How do you even catch those without that thing ripping your hands off?
Ask Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley.
It's amazing how that team changed because they added two weapons for him. It just goes to show, like, the difference maker. Once you have an established guy, like one or two play, like, I think about Brady and how the Patriots could have avoided this by getting one or two skill players. I mean, really, that's the only reason why Brady left. They could have been in the same situation in the AFC again if they actually had filled out the roster correctly.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty telling that once Josh Allen took that step forward, that not only with the better players that they picked up or whatever, just Stephon Diggs.
Right.
You could tell with Josh Allen's progression, Cole Beasley got better. Like he's an old wide receiver. He's not really that young anymore.
And Josh Allen's making him better.
He's having one of his best seasons. Yeah, it's really just amazing to see. You know, when you put in the little work that Carson Wentz, I'm talking to you. When you put in the work, everybody benefits from it.
I just want to say this also. Talk about putting in the work. Phillip Rivers retiring. Hate to see it. You know, when Peyton first retired, I was like, this is the end of the era. Truly, it was. It was the end of the... I mean, Brady continued it and everything, but once Peyton retired, you're like, now the end of these pocket passers are really going to start leaving the league. And Phillip Rivers was one of them. Tom Brady's one of them. And Ben Roethlisberger's the other. And Drew Brees. I mean, after that, we have a ton of quarterbacks in this league who are not true pocket passers in the sense that those guys were. I mean, Peyton Manning never really ran. Him and Brady were so smart, they made the adjustments at the line and never had to run their way out of a blitz. And Phillip Rivers was the same way. It was either I'm going to make the pass or I'm just going to throw it away or I'm going to get sacked. They never really ran their way out of problems. And whatever you think about it, right? You could say, the league's, it's better like this. I mean, I'm not one to argue if it's worse or better. I'm just saying it's like the center in the NBA. This certain type of quarterback, while not extinct, is not going to be as predominant. And you're seeing a lot of those great pocket passers start to leave the league. And it's kind of sad.
Yeah, the game is evolving away from the pocket passer, right? Like,
yeah.
Do you see any young guys that are pocket passers now? Maybe the kid from the Chargers this year.
But even he has an athletic build to him.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, it's not the same as it ever
Nick
was.
Foles could be the last pocket passing quarterback to win a Super. Oh no, Tom Brady won a Super Bowl afterwards.
Nick Foles may never play football again. I don't know. I'm not even convinced that he's going to be.
Tom Brady's could be the last pocket passer who won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. I think so
for at least a couple years. Okay, Jim, give us your thoughts on Joel Embiid. The folks want to hear it.
All right, so really my thoughts are questions to everybody that's listening. But Joel is second right now in probability to win MVP, and it's early. Like this is the time where it changes. Like after halfway through the season, the MVP you kind of know who it's going to end up being. But right now it's Nikola Jokic and then Joel Embiid, and Joel's got like a 10% chance to win it. But like I said, this varies a lot early right now. So,
any one game can throw you totally off. The narrative. It's all narrative driven.
Yeah, exactly. So who can anybody bring to the table what they think is the reason?
So you're asking the chat.
I'm asking the chat. Did Joel turn the corner due to his child being born? Like did being a dad make him more serious about taking care of his life?
Jim, stop. You're telling me that Carson Wentz is a worse quarterback because he has a kid, but Joel Embiid gets to be MVP when he has his?
Well, Carson Wentz is a different story, and I don't really want to get into it on air. But if we're gonna go there, it's
we don't
Carson
have
Wentz
to go there.
Was pure, then he got married, and then he wasn't pure, and now he's not good at football anymore.
Oh no, Joel Embiid.
Joel had a kid. He got serious.
Okay.
I don't know. Is if anybody buys that?
Life.
But
okay.
Is the coaching thing? Is bringing in Doc? Is bringing in Dave Yeager? And like, are those what are really helping Joel? Because I really think Yeager is making Joel the best big man in the league, and that's what he's done before with I believe Gasol, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think personally that's what I think. I think this whole restructuring of the organization and fixing where there were issues and bringing in other players that can do the job where we didn't have before, like Josh Richardson couldn't do the job that Seth Curry does or Danny Green does, and it's I think the whole restructuring has benefited Joel, and I think it's benefited Ben Simmons too. But that is up for debate. A lot of people don't like the level of play that Ben's displaying right now, but I have no qualms with that. So Joel Embiid, second right now in the probability to win MVP. I think this could be the year. If he just threw down 42-10 against the Celtics, if he continues to do stuff like that about this narrative.
And I just want to say this real quick, Jim. I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem.
Against the Celtics team, remember, Brad Stevens had Joel's number for the last 3 seasons. They always figured out the double team, regardless of the centers or guards playing. Marcus Smart always coming in and swatting at the ball that Joel was holding. this was a turning point, and it's not set in stone, but it's nice to see. And I just want to really emphasize that point.
Yes, and there's a lot of stuff from that game last night that you can see where Joel's improved, right? Like you said, the double teams. But also, I don't know if Brad Stevens was like off his rocker yesterday or what. but
he's just going crazy on the sideline.
Like Joel had owned Tristan Thompson the entire game. And then obviously when Tice or whatever this
Tice.
Yeah. Tice's name, whatever it is. Whenever he's in, he's obviously more physical with Joel. Like he's not afraid to get, his hands on him and stuff.
Right.
I honestly don't know why you took him out with 7 minutes to go. Like you needed to stop Joel in the fourth quarter. Joel was heating up and getting very dangerous in the fourth quarter. And I don't know what happened with Brad Stevens, but I thought it was just a bad decision to take him out and put Tristan Thompson in.
I think for the Celtics, it was really the question was, why can't you stop Joel Embiid, and then who were you going to go to close out the game? And they really just weren't. They just didn't have it. I mean, I'm going to be, you can't bury the fact that Tatum didn't play that game. However, I won't minimize it to the point where I'm saying Joel Embiid doesn't deserve accolades, because he does. Right? That game was very good. And when he's played, they're 10-2. And he's only missed 2 games, which is pretty decent. I would expect him to miss 1 per 12 to 13 games. Okay, maybe he missed 2, but I really think he's trying to play more, and the 70-game season benefits a player like Joel Embiid. If there's ever going to be a year for Joel Embiid to win MVP, not saying it's because of his durability issues, it's the year where it's 72 games rather than 82, and they might be 72 for the rest of our lifetime. So don't think that this is just like a asterisk next to Joel Embiid's name. It won't be if this is how the league is set up for the next 20 years, which I think it is, because more players have to play and less get to rest, and it's just better product. Right? The league's better when Joel Embiid plays 90% of the games.
Yeah, and I don't even know the few games that he's missed, I don't even think that was related to load management or anything. Wasn't that just because
one was an exposure test?
One was
right?
an exposure, yeah. That's
2 of them actually were. I think they were back to back.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even think that there was that much.
I think he had like right knee soreness, but it wasn't really. I mean, they were tweeting about that. I was getting notifications from ESPN, but I really don't think that's been an issue since.
I just think he looks more serious out there. He doesn't talk as much. The games that I've watched, it doesn't seem like he's clowning around as much. He looks more serious, and it's very enjoyable to watch somebody play at the level that he's been playing at. And I hope that he continues to do that for the rest of the season and win the MVP, because we haven't had that in a while.
Yeah, Allen Iverson. Did he win MVP?
I thought so.
Yeah, that's what I thought. The 1 year he did, because he literally carried that team. So, Jim, you have a little listing here of those players. Do you want to go through them?
Sure, yeah. These are.
You don't have them in any order, though, so I'm just saying that for the people listening.
Yeah, there's no order. I just have my, I'll say top 11 players in the league. I thought it'd be fun if Tony and I just picked who gets bumped out. So I have Jokic, Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, James Harden, Luka Doncic, Steph Curry, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, and then, Tony, you also wanted to add Damian Lillard, so that's 12. So we might have to pick 2 guys out if we want to throw Dame in.
Sending this in the chat for everyone to see. This is the players Jim picked. Okay. I want the fans listening on YouTube to be able to see that on their screen in the chat comments. If I had to pick one of those guys to push out, Jokic, Joel, Giannis, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Harden, Luka, Steph, Beal, Kawhi, LeBron. The guy I'm picking out is Bradley Beal. He hasn't done anything yet for me, and I don't think he's better than Joel Embiid right now on the court. And if you told me who was your next guy, I'm picking out Luka. I'm kicking Luka out. Joel Embiid's a better player than Luka Doncic right now. And Luka could be a better player in 1 year. He could be a better player for the rest of the season. I mean, he's that talented. But the way Joel Embiid's playing right now and what he's done in the past, I'm willing to say he's a better player. And at 100%, Joel is better if he's at like full health, full ability, and full desire to win.
So yeah, like I don't even have Joel. I don't even have Joel near any of these guys. Joel is in my top 5, maybe top 3 of this list. So I don't even
I think Joel Embiid's a better player than Anthony Davis
right now. Yes,
right now. And last year they won. The Lakers did with Anthony Davis. But every matchup Joel ever had against Anthony Davis, well, look at the numbers. Go back, folks. I used to cover this on Radio 1851. Joel Embiid owns Anthony Davis. He really does not have a problem. Joel is bigger, just as athletic, and can defend against Anthony Davis pretty decently, to the point where he forces Anthony to shoot more outside shots than he would prefer. And I was texting someone about this, and I think you'll agree. The only team that matches up with the Lakers right now, the 76ers. Ben Simmons can cover LeBron. Joel Embiid can cover Anthony Davis. And if it's not working for Ben Simmons, and you can put Tobias on there just to help rotate a little bit. We are the only... The Nets can't guard the Lakers. They got rid of Karis LeVert. It was the only center that could guard Anthony Davis for the Nets. Now they have 2 guards who you could say, oh, the Lakers need to cover 2 guards. But I think that's an easier task than covering 2 big men. Big men that have their way, it's a lot easier for them to score than guards who have their way.
Yeah, and I think that's a hard matchup for the Nets against the Sixers as well. I think that
if Ben Simmons is the offensive player he can be, right? Because then even if the Sixers play the Lakers, you still got to go, well, I don't know if offensively they could keep up if the Lakers got hot. And I don't know if they could. I really don't think they could. It's just defensively, the only team that could possibly hold the Lakers from scoring 105 points is the Sixers. It's just the question is, can they score enough to get to that situation? And I don't even know if they can. That's the real problem at the end of the day. And that's the problem with this team, is the fact that there is no way for them to get Bradley Beal while keeping Ben Simmons. That way you have a nice defensive player who can stay in front of LeBron and Kevin Durant, and then you have a good offensive guard who just diversifies your scoring ability that much. If they trade for Bradley Beal, if they trade for James Harden, you're giving away the one other player not named Joel Embiid who can stop LeBron or Anthony Davis. And it's just like this conundrum that you have. And the only other hope is you're like the Nets and you go, we're just going to beat you with better guard play. We're just going to outscore you then, like the Warriors would.
Yeah, and that's that's banking on a lot. I know that the 3 players are really good, but they're going to have off nights, and that that doesn't. No one plays great all the time.
Right.
Yeah. See, I think I agree with you. If not Beal, because I really like Beal right now. I think that he is a top 10 player right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think Doncic is out as out of my top 10, because I don't think
the Mavs have struggled.
Yeah, it's either Doncic or Curry if I have to pick one of those. So and I know Curry had 62 points or whatever. Yeah, great, but like Golden State's not really doing it for me right now.
I do like to see them do well though.
Really? I swear back in 2015 you would say otherwise.
I would, but now that they're not the dominant force, it's like I've always respected Steph Curry. He did change the game, and I never doubted that. It was just once the Durant thing came, it just like pissed me off. I mean, but guess what? I have a lot of respect. You know why? Look at the Nets. There's a lot of egos out there. The Warriors, they put those aside, and I think that really changed my view. Even when the Warriors were winning, I knew and respected the fact that, there's a lot of sacrifice being made on that court, and it is greatness when you can do that. So, I used to get pissed off at Steph Curry.
I know.
I used to get really angry watching him play.
And I'm stuck in 2015.
Because it was just so radically different. It was just so radically different.
Yeah.
At the time, you're just like, what is going on? No one can stop. Why can't you stop him?
I just remember just sitting in the dorm room and just being like, dude, I love this Golden State Warriors team. And you're like, who's quietly putting up 30 points in the East? LeBron James.
And he was. And he won that year.
Yeah.
He did win that year. That was the year you and me lived together, because it was my sophomore going into my junior year. That's when LeBron won with the Cavs.
There was a lot of nighttime arguments over basketball.
And then we'd play 2K. Be like, we got to redo it, but virtually. Jim, real quick before we close out the show, I think we're getting GT, and I think we're getting them good money.
Yeah, I think so too.
All is well in the world. See, Philly fans,
we do have good days.
We do have good days. Eagles might be, questionable hires. St. Joe's driving me up a wall. Sixers still have questions around them, even with an MVP candidate. That's life, though. That's life. Okay, Tim.
Oh.
Who am I? Okay, Jim. I think that's how we're going to close out the show today. Really appreciate that you were able to come on.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. It was awesome.
And for all of those listening to Tony's Takes on YouTube, thanks for listening to today's episode. We're climbing in our subscriber numbers. And if you're new to the show right now and you're listening on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to us right here on YouTube and double click the notification bell. That way you get notified every time we go live. If you're listening to us on the recorded version on Apple Podcasts, thank you for listening. You'll see that we have our LaSalle preview show. While the game is over, it was still nice talking hoops with the fellas from the Gola Standard, so make sure to check out that episode. It dropped on Sunday. St. Joe's lost, but it was still fun crapping on the Villanova team. And I even got some Villanova haters on my Twitter account, refused to respond to them because who cares? And maybe we'll go into that next week. We'll talk about that next week, Jim. I'll have to show you. I didn't show you that, but I'm going to let the dust settle. I'm a bigger man than that. But anyway, if you're on Apple Podcasts listening to the show, make sure to leave a 5-star review and write the review. That way we can read it on the show. All reviews get read on the show. Email the mailbag, tonystakes.1851@gmail.com, tonystakes.1851@gmail.com. That way you can get your questions and takes on the show. If you send them in before 7 o'clock on Thursday, they will make their way onto the program. Follow us on Twitter at Tonys_takes. And I think that's it. Make sure to subscribe to us. Other than that, thanks for listening to today's episode of Tony's Takes. I look forward to seeing everyone right here on YouTube next Thursday.
The premier sports talk radio, it's Tony's Takes.
Here we go.